The reason I got into podcasting because I had this passion project on my heart and mind. You mentioned it's called, well, in short, it's called GSL, but that is short for God, Sex, and Love. It's a whole thing, y'all. There's a whole story behind that as well. But basically, this concept of God, sex, and love was on my heart and mind for years. I felt like God was like, you need to do this, da 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 da. And I'm like, and it kind of stemmed from my single days, basically. Because, well, one, it was hard for me, you know, because I didn't want to be single and whatnot. And then, two, I'm also a Christian, so I was trying to balance that whole thing because it's like, well, Lord, I'm horny. What do you want me to do? It was a whole thing. I'm telling y'all, it's a whole journey. And so during that time, I'm trying to, you know, stay on the straight and narrow as much as I can and everything and whatnot. And I was looking for content as a Christian person, and I just wasn't seeing it. I was seeing like Christian people talking about things, but then they never talked about like everything. You know,
yeah, there's no
and then on the flip side, you would hear the secular people and they're talking about everything, but then not coming from the perspective that I needed.
Yeah.
And then even if they had someone on their shows, they would just overtalk that person and not, you know what I mean?
Wow, okay.
So that's what I was kind of seeing at that time. And I think that's kind of sparked me to get on YouTube myself and just kind of just share my journey and be like, hey, if anybody else is out here single and horny and Christian and whatever, you're not alone. I'm me too. You know, anybody else out there? And I just kind of got on line doing that back in the day.
You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey everybody, it's your girl DJ with Plan for Keys podcast, and today I have a special guest, Miracle. She is an author, podcaster of GSL, and actress. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
We are excited to have you. So before we dive into this conversation, I would love to hear your story as to why you got started in podcasting. Acting and just all of that great stuff.
Ooh, all the things. Now, acting goes way further than, than the podcasting part. Podcasting is kind of a recent development, 2020 endeavor. Y'all know how that goes. A lot of stuff got established for a lot of people in that season. But long story short, my name is Miracle, Miracle Sims. I usually go by in the public eye, you know. Small town girl with big dreams, basically. You know, I grew up in a town called Jackson, Georgia, Butts County.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you familiar with Jackson?
I've heard of Jackson. Mm-hmm. We're not too far from Jackson.
No, it's not.
In Covington, you're definitely not too far from Jackson, right?
It's not too far.
Yeah. So I've heard of it.
It's so funny because either people haven't heard of it or they heard of the jail that's down there, and it's like, okay, well, I don't. That's the only thing people talk about when they mention Jackson. But anywho, so when it comes to acting, I mean, that was something that I guess has been a part of my life from childhood. You know, I would say I caught the bug or realized that it was something that I could do as a career once I got in middle school, you know, sixth grade and stuff. And I think maybe the whole idea of, it's so funny, like basically growing up, you know, you have a lot of different ideas. Like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, da, da, da. But for whatever reason, when I was like, I'm going to be an actor, it's the first time I got backlash, or, you know, or whatever. And then I don't know if that was motivation for me to be like, well, I'm going to show you.
Right.
I don't know. But possibly part in some way. But yeah, so acting, I mean, again, I would say that got established back from, I like to joke, but it's the truth. Basically, when everyone else was saying Happy Easter, everybody, my mom had me saying poetry and whatnot, you know? So, I would say it started then because, you know, memorizing, speaking in public, you know, being a narrator, all that type of stuff was stuff I was doing through childhood. So, honestly, I guess you would say prepping me for the podcast life and whatnot. So if I fast forward to 2020, the reason I got into podcasting because I had this passion project on my heart and mind. You mentioned it's called, well, in short, it's called GSL, but that is short for God, Sex, and Love. It's a whole thing, y'all. There's a whole story behind that as well. But basically, this concept of God, sex, and love was on my heart and mind for years. I felt like God was like, you need to do this, da 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 da. And I'm like, and it kind of stemmed from my single days, basically. Because, well, one, it was hard for me, you know, because I didn't want to be single and whatnot. And then two, I'm also a Christian, so I was trying to balance that whole thing because it's like, well, Lord, I'm horny. What do you want me to do? It was a whole thing. I'm telling y'all, it's a whole journey. And so during that time, I'm trying to, you know, stay on the straight and narrow as much as I can and everything and whatnot. And I was looking for content as a Christian person, and I just wasn't seeing it. I was seeing like Christian people talking about things, but then they never talked about like everything. You know,
Yeah, there's no
and then on the flip side, you would hear the secular people and they're talking about everything, but then not coming from the perspective that I needed.
Yeah.
And then even if they had someone on their shows, they would just overtalk that person and not, you know what I mean?
Wow, okay.
So that's what I was kind of seeing at that time. And I think that's kind of sparked me to get on YouTube myself and just kind of just share my journey and be like, hey, if anybody else is out here single and horny and Christian and whatever, you're not alone. I'm me too. You know, anybody else out there? And I just kind of got on line doing that back in the day. And I called that a hopeful romantic. It just was something I was doing on my own YouTube channel. And I was kind of, you know, doing it and then kind of getting discouraged along the way for whatever reasons. And I know she's like, girl, I asked you one question.
No, keep going, please.
Well, I'm told you this long story, but basically, I would say that was the beginning stages of GSL. And then there was years in between. I was going through my own, what I call the cultivation period, going through my own growing season and whatnot. I know we talked about this recently, so sorry. I was like, doing what you told me yesterday. But looking at myself and, you know, seeing the things I needed to change and do better and things. And whatnot, going through that. And then basically, I had kind of paused on doing things on YouTube, basically, as well. And ultimately, what got me into podcasting in particular, one, it was a suggestion from my husband because I had shared with him. And I know that y'all like, what, you talk from being single to a husband? I know there's years in between of all this stuff that happened. But if I fast forward back to like 2019, I was telling him about, because he already knew about GSL. He already knew about like, because in my mind it was a talk show. And I'm like, I want to do this talk show, God, sex, and love, be open, honest, transparent, you know, have these conversations, da-da-da-da. And I was like, well, at that time in 2019, I was like, maybe I'll just do a blog. You know, I was like, just to get the idea out there, just, you know. And he was like, you should do a podcast. And I was like, man, you do this to me all the time. Every time I tell you I'm going to do one thing, you see this bigger thing for me to do. And I just kind of brushed it off at that time. But joke's on me, you know, what happened in 2020. Yeah. Right. And so basically I found myself at home. You know, it was with me and my son. I couldn't really work my business the way I was and, you know, all the stuff because everybody was at home. And the idea about podcasts came back around and I looked into it and saw it was something that I could, you know, do from the comforts of home and whatnot. And from there, I just was like, well, Lord, what do you want me to talk about? Whatever. And I came up with this name, The Juice, Your Daily Dose of Inspiration, not knowing I was really going to do it every day and everything like that. But that's what kicked me into podcasting. And so I challenged myself to just give daily inspiration. So Monday through Saturday, I give daily inspiration. I had to take that break on Sunday, you know, get my own inspiration so I can get replenished, you know.
Ooh, I love that, yeah.
You know, but so that's what got me into the podcasting part. And months into doing that, I got the opportunity to do the talk show. I was doing it for a network at one point, and then it's so funny. At the beginning, I would say that was God, Sex, and Love, the talk show, because that's what it was. But at this point, I feel like, so right now, God, Sex, and Love is the YouTube channel. And then we have the GSL talk show. We have the daily inspiration segment, The Juice. And we have a lot of other concepts and shows under that umbrella of GSL, God, Sex, and Love as well. But yeah.
So, have you started thinking about maybe doing your own network since you have all these shows and all these things going on?
What it's feeling like is about to be. Like, you know, when you're speaking.
Why don't you start your own?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have to figure that part out and what that's going to look like. But that's kind of what it seems like at this point, because, yeah.
Gotcha. And then you're also an author all within that. Could you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yes. So, long story short, that. So, back in my 20s, if I go back to my single days and whatnot, I was living in Florida, and I felt like I had all the things. I was living on my own. I had a job and, you know, all this different type of stuff, but I didn't have the love. You know, I was like, well, what's going on with this part of my life? Like, everything else is lining up. Now, can I have this too? You know? And basically, what just came to me while I'm laughing is basically I felt like God was like, no. Which was, I guess I wasn't ready for the things that I want. I thought I was. I'm like, I'm ready for marriage or whatever now, you know. But basically, what happened was, as I was seeking the Lord about like well, why hasn't this happened for me? Like, why am I just, I was kind of fooling around, having little friends with benefits, doing all that little stuff because I was single, I'm not in a relationship. I'm trying not to have sex. So I'm not doing that part. But, the other stuff was fair game because, people try to find loopholes, right?
Right.
I was one of the people trying to find loopholes back in the day. So, see, I'm honest. Come see us on what you would sell. But yeah, so basically that. And so during that time, there was a friend of mine that had, she was married already and stuff. And she was looking at my life like, girl, you single, you doing it, you got your place, you da 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 da. And I'm over here like, you got your man, you was married, da da da. And so we were looking at each other. And so we were like, we should write a book about this, like, and we come from both of our perspectives. She was going to come from married, I was going to come from single. I did my part. She never did her part. Shout out to my friend. I love her. That we still like this, but it's so funny. She didn't do her part, and I did my part. And then by the time I was done with my part, I realized that I had pretty much like wrote a memoir. I had pretty much like wrote like what had happened in my life and what got me to the point of where the way I was handling dating and all that different type of stuff. And then so the name, the Cultivation Period, it was, again, a recent development. Like, back in the day, it was called something else. And I got a new concept coming out soon. I ended up using that name for something else. Hopefully, that'll come out in the future. But I still wanted to have the same kind of effect of, like, gardening or, like, tending and whatnot. And so I guess, basically, I looked into different things, and I came across this thing that was telling me that the cultivation period represents the growing season or growing period.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what it was. Like, I mean, not saying that was the only one I've had in life, but it represents my dating cultivation period at that particular time. And it's so crazy because basically in 2021, after, again, the first domino was starting Daily Inspiration with the podcast. Mm-hmm. Then months later, the talk show became a thing. And then a year after that, that's when I learned the art of self-publishing. And I published, it's so funny, again, I published several other things before I published the Cultivation Period. But ultimately, I was like, I've been sitting on this book for years. Technically, I could have published this first because I had it already. I had it written. So I was like, I need to publish this one too. And so I published the Cultivation Period, A Single Christian's Journey. And that happened in 2021. So,
got you. What do you think your book would teach someone who is single and Christian and out there, they want love, but they're having that hard time finding it?
Well, I mean, I look, spoiler alert, the main thing is going to teach you is to wait. I know, you don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear that part. But, I mean, to be honest, like, that's, because, again, I thought I knew what I wanted. I thought I knew what I needed. I thought I was ready for all the things I wanted at that time. And I came to realize that as I was, like, seeking the Lord for the answers, he was showing, like, putting that mirror in front of my face and showing me, like, this is reasons why. And so there's, like, different things in there where I'm sharing my whole life or my journey because I feel like, to be honest, the way I was handling, again, like, friends with benefits or just kind of fooling around and, trying not to do too much, but, and doing all of those things and whatnot, those were the kind of some things I had to kind of change, rectify, cut off the friend with benefits. Because at the end of the day, it was like, I said I was wanting marriage and love and the commitment and all that type of stuff, but here I was fooling around. Here I was doing things that wasn't aligning with the things that I really wanted. And I had to take that look in the mirror and see that in myself to be like, you know what? Yeah, if you really truly want the things you want, you got to make those changes and whatnot. And, I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, I'm perfect and stuff, or nothing like that. I mean, it was a struggle. There was some things along the way where I felt like God was asking me to change this thing. And I'm like, okay, I got to tell this dude whatever, like, okay, I know we had this little thing going on, but, I know, we're not together, we're not trying to go to another level, X, Y, and Z, so we got to cut this part out. Like, there was just things that I had to do along the way to work on me to get to be the woman that I wanted to be, right? Or be married and all those different things. So it's me being open and honest and transparent about that process and, like, the ups and downs of that and what I was learning along the way, like, what people poured into me at that time, married people that I was going to a church. There was a lot of married people there, my friends, and, so different people were pouring into me as well as I was seeking. And, yeah, so there's a lot of that in there. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Besides, like, when Christians, they'll say, oh, it was my flesh that was wanting. Why do you think Christians get kind of sidetracked in like, as far as like you said, you had friends with benefits and this and that, but you knew you wanted marriage, and then you were in the church and you had the knowledge and all of that stuff. Why do you think you got sidetracked when you really like think about it?
Well, see, it's a natural thing. And see, that was the thing, too. I would pray about it. I was like, well, Lord, like, just take the feelings away until it's time and all these different things. But it's a natural thing to have that desire. And it's not bad. You know what I mean? And I feel like people feel like it is bad. But it's not, it's something God created. It's not a bad thing to have a desire. For example, if you might be attracted to, someone or whatever the case is, it's not bad. It's just there's a certain stipulation in regards to what the Bible says when you're supposed to act on certain things.
Got you.
And I could totally see for me, like, because things have been like introduced to me at an early age and stuff like that, which is where I feel like some of my stuff stemmed from as well.
Got you. That was more of my question was leaning more towards like, like, why did you lean more towards the friends with benefits versus probably the guy who wanted marriage, wanted what you wanted?
Well, I feel like at that time, not to say I didn't meet guys that wanted what it's like, for me during that time, one of my issues was everybody was an option until proven not. You know what I mean? So gotcha. I never like pushed no guy away or nothing. It was like until something, whatever it was, showed me that, okay, this might not be the person for me, like for marriage, whatever the case is, then, that's kind of how I was looking at it at that time. Or
so let me ask you this versus the conversation, because now you're married. So the conversations you were having with those other guys versus your husband in the beginning to decipher this person wanted marriage or it wasn't going to go anywhere. Can you think of the differences maybe between the...
I'm laughing because during that time in my life, I had moments where I'm like yelling at God and stuff. I was in my apartment. I'm like, why is this? Why is that? Can you let me know? Like, what's going on? And I felt in my spirit at one point at that time was like, you ask me more questions than you ask the dudes you dealing with. And I'm like, you right about it.
I can relate.
So I probably didn't really, honestly, during that time, for example, there were only a few guys that we would have like these deep conversations and whatnot. Like, the first guy that I really started talking, for example, having spiritual conversations with, I thought, several times in my life there were several ones. I thought, so you must be the one. And then it's like, okay, I guess not. So then you must be the one because I have a spiritual conversation with you. Oh, okay, I guess not. And it
do you think you
process.
Did you think you ended up connecting with like dudes who made it seem like they wanted to be in the Word and do this and do that more, and maybe in a way you were kind of coddling them with the Word, and maybe that's how they got through? Like, or no, these people...
So, see, again, at that time, I don't know if I was even focused that much on getting a particular, like a church guy in particular or something like that.
Okay.
Because again, like the dude that I was just mentioning, and I did mention him in my book or whatnot as well, because I felt like he was very influential in showing me, you know what I mean?
Okay.
But anywho, like again, he was probably one of the first guys I had ever really had spiritual conversations with.
Okay.
And then the rest of the guys, it just was like, you meet somebody, you just, and you think they're cute, and I guess they think you cute, whatever, and you just kind of get to know each other and stuff like that, just random, maybe at work or whatever. And so it was never like, I felt like the church guys at that time maybe looked at me as sister or whatever, and didn't look at me as romantic. And so the dudes that did look at me as romantic, maybe we never went that deep in regards to those type of conversations. And then, or the dudes, like there were dudes that I guess really liked me to the point where they probably thought that we could be married and stuff. But then, like for example, there's one young guy in particular, he was younger than me. And the only thing about him was that I felt like he was very impressionable at that time. Like I could tell him, like, let's go over here, and I'm moving, and he would probably go, like, and that's the part that I was like, I don't want to have that much influence on a dude. You know what I mean? Like I don't want you to feel like because I'm moving, you got to move X, Y, Z. I feel like you need to go and grow more, or whatever the case is. And if we're meant to be, we'll be meant to be, or whatever. Just stuff like that would be the stuff that stood out to me about
guys or whatever.
So many things happening in my life.
Okay, I want to back up a little bit because I know for you, when you think about you, like you said, one of the things you wanted love, you wanted to be in a relationship. Where do you think that stems from? I know probably culture and all that stuff, but you think of anything else on why you deeply wanted it? And then, like you said, you never really pushed anybody away. You gave everybody a chance. Would you say also, while looking for love, did you have issues with setting boundaries and finding your voice?
I think just overall, in my life, yeah, I've had to find my voice, right, and things like that over the years, for sure. Because I felt like there was something, and I see why now, because all the things that's going on. But back then, things like being told stay in a child's place, or like the things like, whenever I would say something, it seemed like it would be World War III reactions, but then everybody else, like kids, could go around, slam doors, say whatever they want to say, and I'm over here like, how is this happening? Like, what is so crazy about when I just say something that I observe, like, hey, I see this is a little different, or I'm noticing that this person is receiving a little bit of different reaction than me, and then it'd be like, on me.
Yeah.
But I feel like perhaps, and no offense to the adults in my life or anything like that. I'm just saying, I think for me, when I think about spiritual wise, I feel like there was something that was trying to shut me up years ago, like to scare me from talking. And I see that now, because again, that's all I do every day. I'm sitting there talking.
Got you.
And sharing all the things.
And you think that manifested in your other relationships as well?
I would say, I know you asked me, like, why do I think I wanted love and marriage so much? I don't know if it was just the whole fairy tale thing, but then I did, my father did pass before I was born. So, I mean, I have a stepfather, and, he was always there and a great provider and things of that nature, but, not really knowing my dad per se. Like, the only things I know is what people have told me, because, like, basically, I was conceived, obviously, but then he passed, like, in that May, and I was born that August of the year. And my mom was only married they were only married, like, maybe, like, 1 or 2 years at that time. So I can't even imagine what she went through as well, losing her husband and being pregnant and all those things. But and we talked about it and stuff. But what I'm saying, I just, as a woman now, you know what I mean, and a mother now and a wife now, I just couldn't, you know what I mean?
Couldn't imagine.
Yeah, losing my husband and all, going through that and stuff. So, I definitely love and feel for her regarding that. But again, never knowing my dad, so maybe everything was kind of romanticized. Like, I did call myself, like, the hopeful romantic at that time and things like that, where it's like, just wanting that thing that you see.
Gotcha. Or you felt like maybe you was always just missing a piece of you, and you felt like finding that, maybe you could find that through a partner, possibly? Maybe.
Like, see, I never really thought about it, though. In regards to, like, I never was like, why... I think more so when I was going through my journey, or what the questions that I had was like, why am I fooling around so much? You know what I mean? Like, why am I, like... Yeah, that's was the questions that I had at that time. I didn't necessarily wonder, like, why did I want love?
So what conclusion did you come up to when you said, when you were thinking of why you fooled around so much?
I think it was because the introduction. So long story short, and I've shared this multiple times, so it's not.
Okay.
But long story short, basically, my first introduction to, like, kissing and fondling and things like that was unfortunately a babysitter. Wow. And it was something that I didn't necessarily verbalize. I had to have been at least probably my son's age, because he's 4 now. And I know it was before my baby sister was born. And she was born when I was 5. So it had to have been like 3 or 4. And, the babysitter was kissing and encouraged me to kiss her and things like that. But I never really talked about it. It's like, I didn't really, to be honest, it was like, for whatever reason, I don't think it was threats or anything like that, but I know it affects people in different ways.
It does.
And I guess for me, it just made me more like seeking that feeling of, obviously a feeling that I shouldn't have been knowing about, but that good feeling you feel when you're being kissed or touched or whatever it is, and so I think I sought that, as well throughout life. So
wow,
yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
How long? Because your brain is still developing. Like, how long did that? Like you said, it started at 4. Was it a short period of time? Like, how long did that?
How long did it happen? Like, well, I would say, see, I guess I focus more so just on the first encounter because, of course, like things happen afterwards and not with just that person or whatever. It was the introduction, though. You see what I'm saying?
Got you.
The introduction, and then.
So was it? I just can't help but want to think. Then and let me know if I'm asking too many questions. Was it deeper than how your mom probably would kiss you? Because I know people. Okay, the people in France, they have the culture where they kiss a lot. Was it deeper than that with this babysitter?
Yeah, like it was a romantic kiss. It was like,
oh wow,
encouraging me to touch, and obviously she must have touched me because that was another thing I dealt with throughout life. I'm gonna be honest with you, y'all. Can I say masturbation here?
Yeah,
like that's where I would say that stemmed from and whatnot as well. Because I would basically throughout life would go to sleep sometimes, just
wow,
and that was something that I kind of hinted at earlier in regards to being the guy. I feel like at that particular time, the cultivation period in my adult life, when I was going through my growth and whatnot, I felt like at some point God was like, so you need to take control over that. And I was like, what? It was one of the hardest things and whatnot. And I laugh now, but there was this one time in particular, for example, it was me, I was just in my apartment, and feeling some way and wanted to take care of it like I would usually do. And I was doing my best to I said I wasn't going to, X, Y, and Z. And it was the most frustrating thing. Like, I remember crying about it and everything. I'm like, wow. I can't believe that this is happening right now. But on the flip side, I see so much power in that because now I can sit here and tell other people you can have self-control. You know what I mean? Like, because that's one thing that I feel like is a narrative that's being pushed now where people are trying, I can't control my feelings. I can't control this. I can't. Yeah, no. So I had to cry through one, but you can, I'm a living witness. And I mean, and I'm not saying here trying to say, masturbation bad. I know some people do take that route and whatnot. I do believe that everybody can say that, hey, we haven't seen anything in the Bible about you can't do it, but I felt like it was important for me to take control over it
because it helped you with all your other stuff and not being physical, right, as well.
And again, it was just about the self-control aspect. You know what I mean? Because I wouldn't have known that I could have had self-control over that if I didn't
handle the masturbation.
Yeah, part. Because again, it was just so familiar at that time. It was like, again, I can't get to sleep. I know it's going to get me to sleep.
Got you.
So yeah. So now I can share the testimony. Everybody can have self-control if they try, if you want to, really.
Got you. Now, have you sought out other, like, therapy or anything like that in regards to?
No. I haven't really done, like, I have people or like counsel or people that I talk to and whatnot. Mm-hmm. People that I guess I deem to be like my mentor or like safe. Yeah. People that, shout out to them, man. Shout out to y'all. I was just actually telling my husband about this earlier. I'm like, I feel like I have like a good 5 for sure, then maybe a good 10. Or people that like I feel like I could talk to about anything, no judgment, no nothing, like they'll listen to me, whatever, the ups and downs. And so I do have that in regards. And I do wonder sometimes, like, because Lord, do we need to talk about this now? Well, it's so funny because I feel like, long story short, I feel like I have a higher drive than my husband in regards to how frequent we could have sex. I'm willing to try and see, like, could I do it every day? I don't know. Let's try. I would like to try.
Yeah.
We ain't tried yet. Y'all be in prayer for me and my husband. Maybe one day. No, but anywho, basically I share that part to say that, like, why did I share that part?
You're okay.
What was I getting ready to tell you? See, I made too many jokes now, but basically, I guess just going through the journey, right? And sorry, y'all, I lost my train of thought. What I was going to tell y'all, it might have been important, but about that's probably why it went away. But if it comes back to me, I'll tell it. But basically, I feel like. Well, that part is another, I guess, testimony about like marriage and whatnot. Because again, it was so romanticized and hyped up in my life. And you hear the narratives, y'all. You hear like, men want it and all this stuff. And you at some point you have to like really take notice of like what's actually in front of you, and not just romanticizing everything and expecting perfection and all this different type of stuff. So
that's true. Got you. So
maybe I'll get back to what I was going to tell y'all.
No, that's okay. I get lost in thought every day, so it's okay. So in regards to just you were single and then of course you're married now. Could you talk about like that transition and just what that looked like for you? And how you ran into your husband. Like like coming from a space where you were praying for your husband and wanting to be in love and all of that stuff. Like how did he pop up? Like what does all of that look like?
Ooh, okay, so all right, so I write the Cultivation Period, right? That was in my 20s. I wrote the book. I already had it. And then long story short, I ended up a debacle happened, right? And I ended up, I was in Florida at the time, and God pushed me out of Florida. And I was like, what are we doing? I got my own place. I got to come back home now? What's happening? So I ended up coming back home, not knowing that, well, my husband was here. I didn't know that. I was like, why are we leaving Florida? What's going on? So I moved back home, and I was in my hometown for maybe a few months or whatever, and had started my business, ended up kind of putting my business on pause a little bit and finding jobs elsewhere. So one of the jobs was up here in this area, actually.
Okay.
And I was kind of commuting from Jackson up here to do things. Yeah.
That's hard.
And then at some point, the owner was like, if you moved up here, you would get more work. Around that time, I had met this guy, my ex or whatever. And so we ended up shagging up. Because he lived like right around the corner from where the job and whatnot was. And I was like, yeah, it wasn't my intention or whatever, but there was a few things that pushed me up here, as well as the job, like I said, some other things. But then also, I was trying to get my own place. That's what I wanted. I wanted to get back and get my own place again. But what I wanted to do didn't pan out, and he was right there, and his roommate was about to leave, and I was just like, well, I guess, you know what I mean? And so that's how I ended up here in this area. Well, long story short here, he was like everything I wanted in a guy. Like, I feel like he was attractive. He was very talented, things like that. But long story short with that, it ended up being like a mentally and verbally abusive situation.
Okay.
He nitpicked everything about me. You know, it just was one of those things where, it was crazy because I would say that he was with me the longest in regards to relationships. Like, we were together like a year. I don't know if that sounds bad, right? No. Like, a year's the longest relationship I had at the time. But yeah, we were together like a year, and it was working on 2 years.
That's probably why you dealt with it for so long. Like you said, it was the longest you've ever been in. Y'all were living together. You were in a situation where you couldn't get your own place. It makes sense. It's okay.
Yeah. And so we were like getting to be on year 2, and we were kind of talking about marriage and stuff like that. But then there was just a lot of different things that was showing me basically that he wasn't it. But at the same time, you care for people, and you're like, well, maybe he'll change or whatever. Because honestly, I saw a lot of potential in him. Like I said, super talented guy. Like, I could see so much for him. But at the same time, you gotta see people where they at as well. You know what I mean? You got like you can want things for people, but you can't make them, or whatever the case is. And so basically what happened was it came to a point where we got evicted from where we were. We ended up staying in a one of those pay by month places.
Okay.
And we were trying to decide like whether we were going to continue, like get another month there, or whether we were going to try to find a place, or whatever the case was. And we got into another little random argument. Can y'all imagine me arguing and whatnot? Like, that was my life at some point. And I, with the guy, for the record, and only like 2 guys ever. And the first guy, we only had like 1 argument. And then the ex, we would have these moments of space, and that would be the only time that he would listen to me is I would have to yell. Like, that would be the only way that he would, like, I'm like, hear me, I guess, So anyway, so we got in another little random argument, and he's saying all these things, whatever the case was. And by that time, like, I had a couple of friends. My mentor had offered that I could come and stay with her, and she was over there in North Carolina. And that was a whole thing. A couple of other friends as well that was here had said, hey, if you need to come stay with me, da-da-da-da. And so basically we had like a week left in that place, and that argument happens. Let's say it happened like a Monday, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, look, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stay with my friend. You can stay in this place, the place where we were at. We got to figure out what we're gonna do, because this is too much, for me in regards to all this arguing and all this, stuff like that. Because what did he get mad about that day? I think, like, because I told the truth about our eviction. I'm like, they're going to find out. Like,
yeah.
Why sit here and try to, because we were trying to get another place. And like, why sit here and lie to these people about what happened and why we looking for a place? Like, So anyway, I think that's what the argument was about. And I'm like, what? So anyway, so I go and stay with my friend. And so let's say we didn't talk that whole week. And then let's say like Friday, we got back into communication. So we called. First we're talking. Everything was nice, calm, normal. We both saying that, we need to do better about how we communicate X, Y, and Z. Then next thing I know, he's flipped. It's you're the issue, da. And in the midst of that, I felt like I was like, y'all ain't never gonna have no understanding. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. Yeah, I see. And I was like, well, and I remember that was like pretty much the last conversation. I didn't know that was gonna be the last conversation, but I pretty much told him like, yeah, we can be done with the conversation at this point. It's fine. It's fine. I said, I'll just come get my stuff or whatever. Well, so I go get my stuff. I go to the place. His stuff was already gone. He wasn't even there. So I'm like, you had already made your decision. So I'm like, interesting. And so I got half of my stuff. I'm telling you guys this for a reason. I had got like half of my stuff, whatever. I'm pretty sure I was on the like going back to my friend's place. Probably even cried. I was like, man, why do these type of things happen? X, Y, and Z. So I'm getting my stuff out. I'm at my friend's place. Okay, get my stuff out. Guess who helped me take my stuff up the stairs?
Your future husband.
He was my friend's neighbor.
Oh wow!
And he offered to help me take the stuff, and I was like, because that was the weirdest situation for me to be in at the time as well. Because like, if I go back to Florida, I had people like there were times where like friends would stay with me and they would be in time, times that I was in, and it was like the other side now, and I was telling him that day. He was helping me carry this big old thing of shoes, whatever it was. And I was like, man, this is so weird, man. Like, I'm not used to this. Like, I was like, this is crazy. I'm about to stay with my friend, da. And then, I'm just talking to him because he offered to help X, Y, and Z. And he walks me back to the car. And I noticed he walks me all the way back. And I'm like, okay. And then I look up and I'm like, oh, he's kind of cute. I wasn't even looking at him really, I was like, he's got a good smile, just a little dimple. Shout out to hubby. And I guess here's the crazy thing. So that's how we met, ironically. And there's more behind it because, on one hand, I know it sounds like a rebound situation, but I can get deeper into that if you want to. But basically, so that's how we met or whatever. But basically,
how did it progress from? Because I'm sure you were venting to him just about everything that's happened. Period. Like, how did it progress from there to that? It looked like. I didn't even think rebound situation, but most people do think rebound.
Yeah, like because you just got the other thing. Well, okay, so so that day, basically when I was getting ready to go get the rest of my stuff because like I said, I only got half of my stuff at that time. And he was like, well, if you need more help, just knock on my door, da. And I was like, okay. And so I went and got the rest of my stuff. And I came back. I didn't really need no help with the rest of the stuff. So I was like, okay. So I just carried the stuff in myself. And I was on the computer. I remember going to my friend's place. I was on the computer. And then next thing I know, I was at his door just knocking. And I was like, look, it seemed like it was cool. It seemed like, X, Y, and Z. And, I don't need no help with nothing. But if you wanted to talk or whatever. So first we're just talking. And it just was like a breath of fresh air to just have a conversation with a dude. No arguing, no nothing. Just chill conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then the crazy thing is,
I know there's so many women who's going to be listening to this and wish they had your boldness. Like, most of my friends, like, will talk about, like, how to approach a guy or even just, and it's something they would never do. And it's just like, what's wrong with just having a conversation?
It's just, what he said, if you need, but
you ain't need no help.
You're right. But I was honest about that. I was like, hey, I don't need help, but I just wanted to talk. Or if you want to talk, I just figured we would come outside and talk or whatever. But he invited me to come in and talk, and we just were sitting down and we were talking. But basically what happened after that is I'm talking to him. Next thing I know, a mutual friend of my ex had called. And I see this or whatever, and I excuse myself and I go out and I talk to her. And she's saying that he told her that I done hit him and all this type of stuff.
Wow.
And I'm like, I ain't even seen this dude since Monday. You know what I mean? I'm like, why would he go and lie on me? You know what I mean? And so basically when I came back, my husband was like, oh, I didn't know he was my husband. And my friend knew, which is funny. I'll tell you about that in a second. But anyway, I came back and he saw basically he's like, you okay? And I'm like, that's when I honest about like where I really was in life. You know, just
Yeah.
like, and that's when I guess I started to vent about like where I actually was and whatnot mentally and stuff. And because like I just got out of this relationship, X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z, and we're just talking about it. He had brought me a glass of wine, and we just talked. That was like I guess beginning of us or whatever. But I don't know. Did I answer the question?
You did answer the question. That was
Okay.
the beginning of y'all. So
Yeah.
that is nice. You grabbed your glass of wine and
We
just
just
help you
talked about
and just
everything.
talk. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did that progress? Do you think any of the issues that you had in the past you kind of had to deal with while you were with him?
Well, some. But here's the thing. So okay. So for you rebound people, right? The people that like, oh, you get her, he's a rebound. Okay. So one, I would say that other relationship was over months prior, and I knew that.
Yeah.
It's just I was trying to hold on to it. You know, I was trying to be, well, maybe, you know.
Yeah.
So let's just be truthful about that. It was over. I already knew it was over. And then two, what came to me at that time, because I kind of, you know, how you go back and forth about things that are happening, and I see this great guy, you know, and stuff, and it was crazy. And I think that's probably why it happened the way it did, because if I go back to the cultivation period, the people that was pouring into me, they're like, you know, if you know, just wait and X, Y, and Z, it'll happen at the right time, and da da da. And, you know, when you stop looking, it'll happen. But I was always looking, though. That was my issue. I was always looking. Is it him? Who is it? You know? And so for that split second, when I was on my way driving, you know, and crying, whatever I was doing, I had said to myself, probably to the Lord, like, I'll give love a try next year. I don't even want to worry about that at this point.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll try love next year. It's whatever. I just want to get back to the place where I was at, you know, being back close to you, God, like, getting my own place again. Like, even if I get me a studio apartment and live like an artist, like, I would love that. Like, you know, I'm thinking those things. Obviously, God had other plans, but I had said that in that brief moment before I met my husband. And so, yeah, that's, I mean, again, did I answer the question?
You did. Let go and let God. And then, my next question was, so there's things that you probably had in the past. Yeah. Did you bring any of that into your new relationship? And was that stuff you had to work through with your husband? That's now your husband. Yeah.
So that's I guess the part I was getting ready to say. So at that time, basically, I had to ask myself, am I going to cry about something I knew was done, or am I going to see what's in front of me? And I like to say, Mama ain't raised no fools. I was like, I guess I will try this thing again, you know, or whatever the case is, when he asked me to be his girl and stuff, which was kind of like weeks later, y'all.
Oh, wow.
Look at the Lord. Anywho, so, and it's funny. Is this too much? I don't know. So the first time, he had asked me twice. So the first time he asked me, it happened to be my ex's birthday. And I was like, this is weird, because I don't even want to think about that you asked me on my ex's birthday. I can't say yes today. And then a few days later, he asked me again. I was like, okay, I probably can say yes today. After, again, more prayer and whatnot, and having that conclusion of, I'm not going to cry and be upset about something that I knew was done. And so, anywho, so the things that I had to work on, unfortunately came into the relationship with, like, I guess you would say PTSD of, like, critique, you know what I mean? And things like that. So that was something that I kind of had to kind of work through and understand that, for example, if my husband is sharing some information with me or whatever the case is, it's not what he was doing. Yeah, like what I was receiving before. It's just a natural conversation or whatever, you know, and things like that. Also, there was this thing about, okay, long story short, I can't swim, right? Officially. I'll get in a pool. I'd never been scared of it, you know, of getting in water or anything. But there was this moment with my ex where we're at this pool, and he kind of picked me up or whatever. And these people in the pool, I don't know who they were, neighbors, whoever they were, they're like, get in, go, come in. And he knows I can't swim. I'm like, don't do that. Like, don't listen to them. He jumps in with me. And so this type of thing, not that exact type of thing, but so remember, like I said, I never was afraid to be in water or whatever. So something similar happened to me in middle school, right? And we was on a middle school trip, and I was sitting on the edge. Someone pushed me in. And I guess instinct took in, where I was like, okay, this is the middle, so I need to go this way because that's where I was sitting. And I ended up getting myself out. But if I fast back to that moment where he jumped in, I tried to have that moment again to be like, okay, well, where was the edge? But I couldn't. Eventually, he lifted me out, but it just was a moment, right? So that was something, because the next time I got into a pool, it was with my husband, and he like calmly walked me in vibes, because again, that was another like PTSD moment of being like, again, young. And my mama tell you, she was like, she never was afraid of water. She would go to the edge of a river. She got a whole story apparently when I was a child or going or whatever. But so that was another thing I had to work through, that he's assisted with or whatever. Like,
it sounds
she's
like
very patient with me. Like, honestly, like, it was a very safe space.
That's good, because it sounds like you. I know, like we talked about before, like finding your voice, boundaries, and stuff. It sounded like you didn't have issues with that from the get go with him. Would you say?
Like so with my now husband?
Yeah, it just was. It was just easy, just from the get go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm not sitting here trying to act like I'm perfect or nothing. He not perfect. I'm not perfect or anything. But I will say that I feel like he's perfect for me. Yeah. Because I don't know where I would be. And we was both standing here. I was like, well, I don't know either. But I'm like, oh, you probably would have been doing better without me or whatever. And he's like, no. But still, it's just like one of those things. Like, again, not acting like everything is perfect. I just told y'all earlier, like, do I want some husband? The Bible says that your body is mine. But at the same time, I gotta be, obviously I got other things to do. Can't just be doing that all day. But we could. But anyway, things like that where it's like, we have to balance. There's balance.
Yo, this is wild that this question popped up.
What is it?
Because the next segment we ask questions.
Okay.
How long is good sex to you?
How long is it?
Yeah, how long is it? People like tantric, they go for hours. There's some people who they like they quickies. They like they 5-10 minutes. And there's people who like 30, 45, like myself. I like to feel like I got a workout in. You know what I'm saying? But I don't need to go for too damn long. That's just me, though.
You know what? I don't think about that too much. I think I just think about like the whole
the feeling of it and what you getting out of it.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Yeah, because I mean, well, unfortunately, with myself, it don't seem to take too long. You know what I mean? And so then I don't know, but it's a totally different experience with someone.
Gotcha.
And to me, now I don't know if everybody.
I probably, because I know it sounds like I've had more sexual partners, and that's why I feel like I can answer that question. I've dealt with somebody who wanted to go extra freaking long, and like, yo, bro, I'm tired, bro. I'm not doing this shit with you. And then there's people who are too fast. There's people who met me right in the middle. Yeah. I felt like I got a good workout. I got a little bit of a sweat, and that was right at the 30, 45-minute mark. I'm done.
I used to call him the Energizer Bunny. He kept going one time. I was like, I got to tap out now.
Yeah, like, what you doing?
I got to tap out now.
Especially when it's not that great. But that's another story for another day. Let me ask you this. What have you learned about yourself from a past or even a current relationship?
What have I learned about myself? Well, again, like I said, the whole process again. Like I said, I learned a lot with the whole the cultivation period, and again after the cultivation period is when I dealt with my, I hate to say toxic ex, but or the mentally and verbally abusive situation, and I was asking myself at that time, like, the dudes before him never treated me this way. Like, why is this happening? You know what I mean? Like, why am I accepting this and whatever the case is? And so, I mean, I guess that was showing me some things and showing me about what I wanted as well. Because, again, I felt like he was everything I wanted. But then again, meeting my husband, I saw clearly a difference between like what I needed.
I think some people get confused. I was talking to another friend earlier. They'll get confused with charisma versus character. Like you explain that, he's creative, he's talented, he's this. I feel like that's parts of charisma, right? But you didn't really dig into character. And it seemed like your husband is a man of character.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And those were definitely differences of, like, I was dealing with or looking for dudes that kind of stood out or made themselves stand out. And my husband, he'll stand out. He stands out. He's tall and whatnot. But he doesn't, like, he's not one of those, he wouldn't wear the sequin shirt, for example. Like, my ex probably would, Gotcha. Like that.
Who trust have you broken and how have you healed from that?
Whose trust have I broken? And how have I healed?
Yeah, people usually get confused with that question.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, not to be like, oh, I'm the most trustworthy, but I mean, I try to be, honorable and loyal, and I don't.
You never maybe have. We can skip that question. Let's reverse it. We can reverse it because I was gonna give an example, but I'm like, do I want to go into that today? Probably not today. Okay. Who has broken your trust, and how have you healed from that?
Well, I was gonna say the dude. I mean, because it was like, you're supposed to be the one to show me all the love, and and he wasn't that, and I was trying my best to be, because he would always tell me about like the different things he'd been through in life, and it seemed like he had hard life and X, Y, and Z, and I would try to be, that person to show, hey, well, that whatever he needed support,
right?
But then I had to learn along the way that I'm not God. I'm not Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't be everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can only be in the position that I'm in. Like, the other stuff you need is beyond me.
That could be a good example of even the way I put the other question. Because I know you could feel like you betrayed this person, right? Because you decided to choose yourself. And then how have you healed from it? You looked at it on the flip side. You're not, you're not God, and you're moving in a healthier direction for you.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. Sometimes I've had, I guess in that regard, I've had to learn to say no and things like that, and be okay with saying no and stuff because no, people don't have problems saying no to me. You know what I'm saying? And that was another thing too. It's like, you can't be everything for everybody. Like, you have to live your own life as well. So that's the whole thing.
So that's how you've healed from that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had to.
All right.
Still working on it though, y'all.
I think that's a lifelong battle for certain, for me included. So I understand. What is your idea of love?
I mean, look, she's gonna like, oh well, the Bible say. But I mean, honestly, that is a beautiful way to look at it. It is patient. It is kind. It is all those things. Because I don't know, can you truly love someone if you can't, have those things for them? Like, if you can't be patient with your partner, if you can't, be kind to your partner, like all that type of stuff. Like, do you truly love that person if you can't, if you're not willing to be and do those things?
I agree with you on that. Yeah, love is patience, kindness. But what does patience and kindness look like to you? Because that can look like different things to different people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
does patience and kindness and all that stuff leave any room for yourself? Because some people can view love as patient, kind, all of that, and you're giving your whole life to the other person, and it's not reciprocal. But they still feel like this is love. You know what I'm saying? What does that look like for you?
Now, one, I would say it depends on the situation. Dating and whatnot is totally different than marriage, in my opinion, So, for example, again, the patience and all that I have for my husband, you don't necessarily have to have with a boyfriend. You know what I'm saying? Like, if certain things, aren't going the way it should or whatever the case is, you don't have to be patient there. With the boyfriend situation. Now, with the husband, you would have to be a little bit patient or compromising or whatnot.
Do you feel like you have to be what I just described, though, where you're giving your whole self, and there's no ounce left for you? Because there's a lot of relationships like that. And those dynamics.
No, I think there definitely should be balance. Like, I think there should, I should be able to, for example, express myself. I should be able to let it be known, my issue, whatever it is. Hopefully, something needs to be, reciprocated in regards to the things I've shared and said, and not just like I'm talking to a brick wall and there's never no, change or whatever the case is, especially if you want me to do the changes or whatever the case too. But at the same time too, what I'm also learning is, again, this is marriage though, y'all, so for marriage. But what I'm also learning is like, to extend the grace and mercy that has been given to me as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I might want what I want when I want or whatever, right? But at the same time, I do understand that, again, life goes beyond, for example, having sex all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do understand that my husband, as the man, has a heavy load on his shoulder to, make sure everything is, the way it is, so I can come and talk to you today. You know what I mean? And things like that, where it's like we gotta be understanding of like real life. We can't just keep fantasizing and thinking that everything should go my way just because I want it or whatever the case is. Like, I have to compromise in some ways, as a wife.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm not suggesting people do that as girlfriends. Not you know what I mean? Because some stuff you don't need to.
Let me ask you this: definitely
on.
some things you don't need to compromise in the dating phase. But I be seeing a lot of things now where they'll tell people. Now I'm a big believer too in dating multiple people to get to know multiple people while you're in a dating phase. Mm-hmm. But they'll talk about not putting hardly any energy into it, kind of like that. How do you build something with a person and you're not really putting in any energy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean,
I need to ask the quote unquote gurus when I get one on the show. I'm gonna ask them, but I just want to know your point of view if you thought the way that I thought, or maybe like I said, sometimes I wonder, am I too like, am I too giving? I just wonder because that's what they say. Like you're not supposed to, because then how is the guy supposed to know? Okay, you're the one by you just. I don't know. It seems like, okay.
No. Well, I guess, one of the things that
I know you mentioned, it should be different. In which it should be, in what way should it be different?
Like in regards to handling.
Marrying your husband, when you have a husband versus a boyfriend.
You mean like in the things you do for them or the way you treat them and things like that?
Yeah.
Well, for example, like when I talk about compromise, right? Like, if, for example, I was just talking to a friend about this. Not trying to call them out. I ain't calling no names. But say, for example, you're dealing with a guy and you see that he doesn't have either the qualities that, you just in the type of man that you want to marry or something like that. And maybe he's not a bad guy. He just may not be what you need or whatever the case is. You don't have to compromise on that. You know what I'm saying?
Not. Yeah.
Just be like, oh, well, because he's nice or whatever. If you know that, I always would have preferred, for example, the dudes back in the day, because I feel like I dealt with decent guys over the years. I never really had too many. Like I said, the one guy that was the argument, and then the ex, like those are the only two that was kind of like guys. Everybody else was cool or whatever. We just wasn't, dating or for real, whatever. But anyway, like if you know that stuff already, it's just more beneficial for everybody to just, hey, this isn't aligning with where I want to be in life or whatever the case is, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like you can feel that, that deep within, instead of compromising and then wasting your time, wasting that person's time, and all of that, and just holding on because you think, oh, maybe I can't get anyone else. There's plenty of people in the world, y'all.
Sure is.
You don't have to just compromise. But like, now I was there though. I was at a point where I was like, well, I guess I don't know when this is going to happen again. So I guess, here's this guy interested in me or whatever. But we don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to feel obligated to things of that nature. Like, and it can go with anything. You can fill that blank in with anything, in my opinion. Like, I mean, the whole premarital sex thing, no judgment. I struggled out there as well, with it. But for example, say you are someone that's like, I really know that I want to hold on to my convictions and I don't want to cross this line X, Y, and Z. And then you're dealing with somebody that is the complete opposite and they're trying to pressure you, whatever the case is. Don't compromise. You know what I mean? Like, that means that that's not the person, and move on. You know what I mean? And stuff like. That's what I mean, like in regards to you don't have to. Now, husband, wife is, again, might be a little different with X, Y, and Z. It's a different thing going on in that relationship. But prior to marriage and stuff, there's certain things that like I said, I don't think we as women especially, I feel like we deal with and we just take and we're like, oh, well, or whatever, because we want the thing so bad. But it's just more beneficial to just be honest and let things go sometimes.
Agreed. Yeah. My last question for you, since you are happily married, when making a decision on choosing a partner, one must consider blank than blank. When making a decision on choosing a
laughing.
partner, one must consider blank then blank.
I'm laughing because I feel like I've been reiterating this whole time. Reality versus fantasy.
Yes.
Reality versus fantasy. Because, like, I think, again, once I got married and stuff, that's when it really was like a light bulb coming off, like, perfection is a fairy tale. You know what I mean? Like, expecting for this man to be everything at all times
Yeah.
is a true fairy tale. Like, because we're all humans out here. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it's like, again, we do that in a lot of different ways. Like, we hype it up or whatever the case is. And so, focus on reality. Again, seeing what's in front of you. Again, like, for example, me back in the day, I knew months prior that me and that ex wasn't, compatible or whatever the case was. And things like that. If I had focused on what reality was instead of holding on to the fantasy or the potential or whatever you want to fill the blank in and call it, then, maybe I don't know how things would have went. I like my love story. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a smooth transition to me. But at the same time, who knows where I would be in life if I had made some different decisions and been like, you know what? I see this being a toxic. Maybe I wouldn't have experienced the pool thing. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe some time wouldn't have been wasted. The struggle and whatnot. So much happened in that story.
I think everything happens for a reason, and it probably definitely aligned you to your husband, and it probably could be it's the reason why you're with your husband. Yes. So everything definitely happens for a reason, and it probably built characters within you that worked out in your marriage now. So that's
it is. That's the thing. I go back and forth about that all the time. Like, where it's like, where would I be if I did it? But then at the same time, also knowing that it's all in order too.
It's all in order and all aligns and godly's order. So okay, well, I want to thank you for your time, Miracle. It was so nice talking to you. Tell the audience where they can find you.
Well, the best place to find me would be actressmiraclesims.com. That's where it has all the links to me and my endeavors. The talk show is there. Some of the other shows and whatnot are on there. It's like a link tree. So you guys, my books, all that type of stuff is there and available. Miracle Sims, actressmiraclesims.com. Well, I just said it. Actress Miracle Sims, like on Facebook or Instagram, things like that, if you guys want to follow me in those places. God, Sex, and Love, if you want to go straight to the God, Sex, and Love content, godsexandlove.com. But Actress Miracle Sims will take you to all of that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and do you want to leave the audience with any final thoughts or anything like that?
Ooh, final thoughts. Well, first, can I just say, let's give it up for this lovely lady right here. Because, man, she came on GSL, and I just was like, you know what? I love my fellow entrepreneurs, man, and the amazing product that you have created. I already told a friend of mine about it. I'm like, the show ain't came out yet, but you can go check out that app, girl. Check out the app. I just had to, yes, definitely want to do that. And for anyone that, for example, was in my shoes, especially if you're a believer and things like that, one, just know that you're not alone. At the end of the day, there's other people that have gone through the struggles and whatnot. Hopefully, I hope to be an encouragement and inspiring people. I try to get up every morning to encourage and inspire people to not only, build themselves and whatnot, but get closer to God and all that type of stuff. And so it's been a life-changing experience doing this whole thing and being on the journey that I've been on. But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm having a blast. I feel like I'm living my dreams. And if you're single out here, it can happen, y'all. Don't lose hope or faith. It can happen for you.
Awesome. That's what's up. And until next time.